All right, and we are back. I have no idea what happened, guys. That was pretty crazy. Let us get the link going here. Welcome back, whoever just joined. There we go. All right. So yeah, I don't know what happened. In between starting this, I actually disconnected Wi-Fi and hardwired the computer back in, and the camera's not working, which it should have been in the first place because it was still plugged in. But hey, we're back. Let's do this. Hello again. All right. Oh, technology. This is going to go so well for Stadia. I can tell you that. Oh man. I say this is why I don't do a lot of online gaming, is because of disconnections and so forth. Oh man. Where did we leave off? Well, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. So here we go. So this is why I don't do live streams. The first live stream I screwed up because I was editing it, and then the redo of the first one has been split in half because technical issues. You know what? As much as I don't care for Stadia, like I love the technology. I really do enjoy the potential of picking up, like, on your phone and going to your computer or tablet, blah, blah. I think that's really cool, but I don't see that hanging around in the long term. Even with the power of all of Google's, servers and things like that, there have been streaming services before. Go Live, whatever David Perry was working on before he joined Sony to work on PlayStation Now, and there's a reason they're not here anymore. I don't see how Stadia can be profitable, much less what's looking for here, have longevity to it. There's just something. Anki Coffee Bean just said not everyone has 4K and good internet. That is true. Case in point. Clearly, I won't be getting Stadia. But yeah, not just the 4K, but 1080p is fine. I'm not streaming and so forth, but there's something about having a service. I can understand paying for multiplayer. You're basically just paying to get onto the playground. You still have your game, and when the server shut off, I still have my game unless it's a multiplayer only game, like say SOCOM. But the idea of a streaming service where I could buy a game and still not own it because when the servers go down, there goes my game. I had that issue with I shouldn't say I had that issue. What was I just thinking about? It wasn't PlayStation. There was see, this is why I don't do live, because I can't think of stuff. I think Stadia could actually have a better chance. The only thing Stadia would have going for it, streaming the game aside, is that Google's servers would probably do much better for the actual multiplayer parts of it. That's where they would shine. But that's not going to mean diddly squat if you're getting super lag or framey or disconnecting, or Google Alexa is spying on you to tell other players what you're doing in game. What the hell was I thinking about? I don't remember now. Oh man. But Dimension Gamer, I think Stadia needs to be set up in a way that the user can define what internet and TV. Yes, that would be extremely that would help a lot. But then the problem technically comes into the same problem you have with PC gaming in general, and that is the playing to win. They use it a lot now for the loot boxes and stuff on the console game side, but especially earlier in PC gaming's life, although I guess nowadays would be ludicrous. You would have a person like me who just has a normal, I have a gaming PC, but in reality, it's just an HP Pavilion with some decent graphics card and the Ryzen and so forth, and I'll be fine on my nice little 1080p monitor. But then like next door, you could have someone who's got Google Fiber on his like 28-inch wide 4K monitor who can see like into other games, and he's just beating my ass because I can't keep up with his speed and his tech. And that's part of the reason why I never really got into PC gaming, is I just didn't like the imbalance. Like I like on the consoles where like it's basically the modem is the only thing really holding you back. Like as someone who worked for GameStop for the however many years, watching all these people like buy their $300 headsets and their like $200 scuff controller and so forth, it's like it's not really that, guys. I mean, I can understand the better sound. I've got a $60 headset myself, but like it's just the console and your internet connection is all you really need to worry about. Let's see. Anki. Already now on PS4, I have experienced corrupted files with some games, and I worry about if the future only going to have streaming games. Oh, yeah, save files would actually be... I didn't even think about save files. That would actually be probably one of the most important things, especially with like the transferring and the auto-uploading. I actually had a game corrupt. Oh, no, I didn't have it. I didn't have the game corrupt. A coworker had a situation where when Mass Effect 3 was coming out, it was around the time that I think they were just now getting to the next set of Xbox 360 Slims, and he did the hard drive transfer to get all of his content on the bigger hard drive inside that new system. And when he went to go play Mass Effect, all of his save files weren't corrupted because they worked on the original games like ME2 and ME1, but Mass Effect 3 would not import them. And he basically like lost all that time playing the previous games to transfer them over, and he was not happy. So that kind of ruined the experience for him, which is a perfect compliment to your story. Like I don't like the future of gaming. I don't. Like even if you strip away like all the loot boxes and stuff, it's just, ugh. Yeah, like it's weird. Like as an old man, as a 42-year-old, like nostalgia does have its grasp on me, but I'm curious as how to kids growing up now, like technically if you were like a 5 or 6-year-old, there's a slim chance you have parents who don't care about physical media, which means all that child has known is just, hey, let me press a button and download a game to my PlayStation 4 or to my tablet. And for a generation growing up that doesn't understand, for lack of a less eviler term, material possessions, that may scream volumes of like how we're not going to have anything physical left to worry about, which would put obviously not just stores like GameStop out of business, but then like imagine walking into like a Walmart or a Target, and just like the entire video game department is literally just a row of cards on the counter somewhere. Like that thought terrifies me. Anki, I always upload now my save files now to PSN code. Good call. I think I've got mine set up automatically, but the problem is that's tied to PlayStation 4 network, and once Becky and I run out of our subscription with 76, I don't know if I'd renew right away, just because I'm sure she wants to move on to different games. And like I said, I'm trying to focus more on the Game Rave stuff. So the fact that I would have to like re-sign up to Plus to get my saves back or what have you, that's just like, God damn it. Like I think Microsoft at least allows you to do a couple without the subscription. Dimension Gamer, AAA gaming, I'm with you. I'm not looking forward to the future, but there is an alternative, the indie market. Yeah, that's true, but the problem is if all you have is the Stadia and the discless Xbox One, even the indie market isn't going to be able to start printing stuff, because if there's no drive to put the discs in, you're kind of SOL. That's actually why I know it's getting a lot of shit, and I did talk about this on the other stream, but I really, really am now looking forward to the Polymega. especially in playing these guys to check on language options and stuff like that. Like, I just like the idea of having a modern day equivalent to still play all these old games where they're still their old ways. It's just upscaled and the like. Which is kind of weird because is it sad that I want the PlayStation 5 strictly just for its backwards compatibility if it's there? Like, if I can literally throw in a PlayStation 1 disc and play it in 4x3, I'm good. I'll spend the $400. Like, I'm done. BioWare can, handle itself, maybe get me another Mass Effect. I can wait till the next Tomb Raider comes out, but I'm that desperate for just a modern, I don't need an upscaler and 13 extra cords to record PS1 games in high res, and I don't want to use an emulator because, what have you. I like playing on actual hardware and so forth. Oh, man. It's just been a weird month. Anki, I like that I can get access to lots of indie games in PSN Store, but I'm not a fan of digital games. I feel like I'm the oldie fighting against the modern time. Dude, I've got my soapbox. I've got my cane. Like, we can start calling people whippersnappers. Like all of us. Like we hang out on a street corner and just start chucking, like, I don't know, what do old people chuck? Popcorn? Depends. I don't know. Like, I think that's one of the cool things about limited run games. Like, yeah, it sucks that their business structure is unfortunately tied to a gray market resellers where a whole bunch of people are just buying up the copies to resell at a higher price later on. But they were at least giving people physical backups of their digital games, and I thought that was a great idea. And now the problem is that everyone's getting into that. I think there's now like limited run games. Is it limited games? There's like 3 or 4 different, like, we're going to print your indie games for you companies now, and it's just getting out of hand, which leads back into the previous stream's discussion about variant collecting in the modern era, which is kind of funny. Someone once asked me if I counted like the limited run releases towards the full PlayStation 4 library set, and I would say yes and no. Yes, because the games are actual games, and they're actually obviously on PSN. They're legit games. But as far as like a physical library goes, I would kind of count them more like the Tengen releases on the original Nintendo. Like, they're there and they're cool. They're on their own little subset, but you don't need to have them, in this case, physically, to have a full PS4 collection, especially because they're so hard to get now because all the resellers and everything. Hybrid. I've never played Starfighter Sandvine. You should, my friend. If you once this stream is done, or it gets cut off again, look it up on Game Rave TV. I did a video about it. It is probably one of the best budget titles I've ever played. It's essentially like playing Robotron, but with spaceships, and instead of it just being shoot everybody in the room and go on, it's all time based. So like, you're literally racing the clock, and as you beat guys, you get more time, etc. And then once you come out of a stage, there's a hexagonal honeycomb, and kind of like Military Madness. Like, let's say there's a boss in this one, and he's surrounded by other hexagons. As you fight every character in these hexagons, you're building up stronger weaponry to use into the next one. So if you actually went completely in a full circle, when you got to the boss, you would be super overpowered. Where the game shines in its strategy and its addictiveness is that the act of trying to build up your weapons is completely against the act of saving time. So like, you may be getting a stronger weapon, but every single cell you do takes more time off the clock. And it's just this amazing like speed run versus like over leveling challenge. When I played it for Game Rave TV's review, I could not put it down, and I mean that literally. Like I wouldn't say it had the Mass Effect effect on me, but I literally could not stop playing it until I beat it completely. And one of these days, I am going to go back to it again, just because I completely screwed up the last boss fight. I obviously beat it because I saw the credits and all the crazy names for the enemies, but that game has such such good replay value and such self-challenge. And as long as the video didn't have an MGR effect, you should still be able to grab it for like $5 to $10 shipped off eBay, even new. It's seriously one of the best games on the PlayStation. Speaking of, its brother game, whose name I can't remember now. Hold, please. But yeah, so this is Starfighter Sandvine, like I was just talking about. Its brother game is a shooter Space Shot. And this one is basically just your typical side-scrolling left-to-right spaceship shooter. But it has charm. It's almost like Thunder Force or Gates of Thunder. That one was just kind of cool because of the effects of the weapons that your spaceship shoots are pretty cool. That one I've only gotten probably like 3 or 4 levels into, mainly just to do the 5-second every game video. So obviously it's another game I need to get back to. But yeah. Let's see. Let's think of something new to ask a question. You don't have Space Shot? Boy, spend the $10. Get on it. Oh my God, speaking of hybrid, I was looking, since I've started adding the Sega Saturn pages to GameRave.com, I was looking on I Am Air for the misprint trivia and so forth. And if you guys want to know just how doomed this Sega Saturn was on the American side from launch, on I Am Air, it was discovered that a whole lot of the original released games, in the quality assurance paragraph, there is a typo. So the paragraph that tells you it's okay, you can trust this game is going to work and be good, wasn't quality tested. I think it was the word "that" is spelled like THAST or something like that. I was laughing so hard when I saw that the first time. Hello, welcome to the club. Is that Julian Popescu? That's actually is that your real name or like a tag? Like, that's really cool. Did I spell it right or say it right? Julian? Nice. Welcome to the club. Right now, if you just joined us, we're basically just shooting the breeze, talking about nothing in general. Previous topics of comment were if you could reprogram a modern game for a previous console, what game and what console would it be? What games are you playing currently? Stuff like that. Sega Master System was my first console. I was 18, 49 now. Love my Sega. You know what's funny? I'm so glad I'm not the oldest person in the room. I'm 42. Sega Master System actually has a personal history with me. When I was younger, and I mean young, like little kid, I knew of the Atari and I knew of the Intellivision, but like I was at that stage where I didn't understand like new things come out. Like I thought literally that like my friends Intellivision and my Atari 2600 were the only game systems that would ever be. And this is a really deep. I haven't thought about this memory in a long time. I remember we were out and about, like we were actually out of state, like we were in Indiana or something, and we were at a mall and we were walking past the cash registers and so forth. And I looked over at the wall, and it wasn't a Toys R Us. I don't remember what the store was, but they had peg hooks of shrink-wrapped games, and of course, it was like the Atari 2600, the Nintendo. But then I noticed the Sega Master System boxes, and I didn't have a clue what those were because I'd never seen them before. And I didn't see the Nintendo name on them or the Atari name, and I was like, what's a Master? I don't know what's a Master System. What is this about? And before my little kid brain could like process or ask questions, I synced out the store. About a week or two later, we were at, I want to say Sears, and I was allowed to go run and play and do whatever. And I remember walking past, and they had a Sega Master System hooked up with the Rocky boxing game. and it was like seeing like a pot of gold for the first time. So I was like, what is this magic? What is this controller? Why is the D-pad so weird? And I just played Rocky for like 5 to 10 minutes straight. I lost every round, but like it was just fun to check out. And that's when I was first beginning to realize that, you know, there was more things down the pike, like things evolved and so forth. And growing up, we didn't have much money, so like basically my Atari and my eventual Nintendo, like that lasted me for a long time. And I remember one day we were walking through, I think when it was called Main Street. If modern day Kohl's, KOHLS, they used to be called Main Street when they were first around. We were walking through there to buy me some school clothing or something like that. And we had about to walk past the just released Sega Genesis, and they had Altered Beast running. And my mom was walking and then stopped because I was like, no, I want to play. That era of shock and awe with graphics is unfortunately gone. Like nowadays, like we hit a point, especially like roughly the PS3 era, where like graphics are basically as good as they're going to get. I mean, you can do better textures, you can do, you know, crisper cleaning, and you can do all the effects, but like we're at a point now where they need to actually focus on the animation, because there's no wow factor left, really. Like every game looks phenomenal, and even if it doesn't, it still looks a lot better than, you know, what you're used to. I miss those days when like you'd walk past the kiosk and be like, whoa, I need to find this out. My first console was a Famicom called the Terminator. That's awesome. Oh man, one of my favorite Famiclones was, I'm sure you've seen it. There was one at a flea market where it looked like a miniature PS1, but then like it came out into controllers that looked like a PS controller and an N64 controller had a baby, and then it came with like a light gun that looked like a Magnum pistol. It had a cartridge slot in the shell, like it was a PS1 with a cartridge slot, and I was like, guys, come on. One of my favorite. Speaking of being introduced to something for the first time as a kid, when I was younger, my dad used to always take me to the flea markets because he was an antique collector, so he'd go, you know, scrounging and stuff for stuff. And I was just there to find Transformers toys and video games. And my first contact with a Famiclone system happened at the Swaparama out in not Forest. Is it Palin? No, where's that? Crestwood. Crestwood's Swaparama. God, what, 35 years ago? We were walking past, and I saw what was Super Mario Brothers 1, and I was like, "Oh, Dad, I'm gonna play this for a second." He was like, "Okay, cool." And I hit the button to start, not realizing the controller looked weird. And I kind of looked up, and what should have been Super Mario Brothers title screen was the actual list of ROMs on the Famiclone. And Super Mario Brothers was called Ramio Brothers. Ramio, Ramio. And I just went, what? And it was like, you know, 40 hacks of Super Mario and like a couple of other ROMs like Contra and stuff. And it's just, I've never been able to let go of just Ramio Brothers, which is when I finally figured out that, you know, there's more to life than just, you know, Nintendo and licensed products. My Sega has the Alex Kidd Miracle. Oh, nice. Yeah, for those that don't know, some of the Master Systems actually had built-in games. There was Alex Kidd. There was a Maze game, I think, and there might be one more, but I know those two for sure. I love how the colors look on my Master System. Yeah, you know, I actually had a Master System way back in the day, like in my, you know, 20s and 30s, when I was going like, I'm going to collect everything. And one of the reasons I kind of regret selling off all my Sega Master System stuff is Quartet. Quartet was one of my favorite arcade games. When my older cousin used to babysit me as a kid, we'd go to Chicago Ridge Mall and he'd give me a couple of quarters, and I would just stay on Quartet because the colors were so weird and so vibrant, and that actually transferred pretty well on the Sega Master System. And it was still one of my favorite games to this day, along with like Time Soldiers and a couple other the Sega arcade stuff. Inky, back before the internet, every game I bought was like looking on the box trying to figure out if it was a game I would like or not. Oh my God, preach. That's another thing I'm actually depressed about in the modern era. The art of screenshots is just gone. Like you said, like back in the day, if you looked on the back of the box, like for perfect example. So here's Space Shot. You can clearly see it's a 2D spaceship shooter. Ooh, cool explosions. Ooh, look at that super weapon. This is the game I'm going to play. I need this. And now you look at like, in fact, give me a second here. Modern day games, they're not showing you what the game looks like. They're just showing you cool angles within the game, like Darksiders 1. If you look here, and this is going to focus a bit, like that's a cinema. That's not a camera angle you play with, and then that's another cinema. This is basically some dude just holding the camera button and spinning it until he found something that looked cool. My first reaction to stuff like this happened with, I think during the PlayStation 2 era, when we had gotten in. It was one of the Maddens. It wasn't the day one Madden for PS2. I think it was the second or third one, and I flipped it over to see like how the graphics looked, and you could tell like it was just a close-up of the guy's helmet, or like the scene when they're walking off the field, and I was just like, well, I don't know how this game plays because I'm just looking at cinema graphics, and I knew what we were done for at that point. One of the best games I was ever betrayed by, from trying to judge it by the back of the box, was Ikari Warriors 2 for the original Nintendo. I adored Ikari Warriors 2 Victory Road. They used to have it at the bowling alley where I had my grade school bowling league at, and it was absolute tradition, like Thanksgiving turkey, that you'd get to the bowling alley 20 minutes earlier just to throw in your quarter and use the double sticks and do your thing with the flamethrower and kill the giant spiders. And when my birthday came, my mom had taken me to, I think it was KB Toys, actually, and I had to pick out a game. And I saw Victory Road. I saw the box art with the guys on the front like this, and I was like, oh! And we flipped the box art over. I'm like, okay, it kind of looks like the arcade, but it's all I got is Nintendo. So like, I want it. Like, let's do this. And I got it home. I remember being so disappointed. Oh, another good example of that, as far as the screenshots go, is when I still had my Commodore 64 as my only computer. I had gotten Double Dragon. I chose as my game to get for that whatever holiday it was. And the back of the box, if you guys don't know, way back in the day, when it was like Commodore 64 and Amiga and so forth, the same game that would be playable on like 8 different computer styles was all on the same disc. So the screenshots on the back would look really phenomenal, but then below it, it would say screenshot taken from the Atari ST. Okay, cool. This should be fine. And all the pictures on the back of the Double Dragon box were, I think, for whatever the high-end computer system was of the day. And we got it home, and I'm like, yes, we're going to play Double Dragon on the Commodore 64. We're doing this. And I rip open the box, and the first thing you see is not the instruction manual and not the diskette. It was a piece of paper that said, our apologies. And I went, what? And this is all true. There was an apology from the developers that were basically admitting that they were stuck with the memory limitations of the Commodore 64. So if you have a sprite, Billy and Jimmy are actually 2 sprites tall. So it would be like their waist to head and then their waist to feet. Well, because the Commodore 64 couldn't handle an image this big, it could handle 2 separate sprites. So the reason they were apologizing is because when you played the game, all the characters had this gap where their belt should have been, because that's how the Commodore 64 could handle it. So you'd literally have just 2 separate sprites taking on 2 separate sprites. And there was literally a pixel wide gap. And as an adult, like it's like, okay, whatever, I'm fine. But as a kid, you just sit there going, this is my baby. This is my Commodore 64. I thought you were my best friend. Like, what is this? Speaking of, I only had a quick shot joystick, so like I was literally playing Double Dragon with gaps between their body parts using a flight stick. Oh, I had such an amazing childhood. Oh, let's see what we got here. Oh, Sonic 1, that's what it was. For the games built on the Master System. I like DLC games. Drive me crazy. Dimension Gamer. I miss finding games with weird titles like Attack of the Killer Mutant Penguins. Yes. Or like Princess Tomato and the Salad Kingdom. Or even just D. D is one of my favorite games on the PlayStation. Not because it actually is one of my favorite games, but every time I go to like give someone the complete list of PlayStation games, and I have the letter designator, so like A list of games, B list of games, every time they get to D, they're like, "Oh, you've got the separator listed twice." No, I don't. It's D. Holy Diver for NES. Holy Diver? It's a song. I don't think I've heard of that. Even on Yankee. Even on PS1, bought games without knowing what it was. I still remember holding a game in my hand and couldn't decide if it was good or not. Put it back on the shelf. Store only had one copy and left. Came back a couple days and looked at the game until I bought it. What game was it? Final Fantasy VII. Dude, that would be like walking into a GameStop today and going, Call of Duty. What's this Fortnite you speak of? That's actually nothing about that's actually how I came into contact with Mass Effect. Like I'm a weird gamer when it comes to like present day gaming. Like if it's not on my radar of things I already like, you have to basically just most of the time like pull my arm to get me to play it. And my coworker at the time pleaded with me to play Mass Effect 1, and I was like, oh, it looks like some PC game, whatever. I'm not into Sims. And he's like, no, just like, and by Sim I mean like Sim Earth or Populous, not the Sims with the diamond above their head. And I remember taking it home, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll play it. I plugged it in, and as soon as I got off the Citadel, and I was like, oh my God, I'm home. Like, how did I ignore this game for so long? How did I not know this game existed for so long? It's so good. Let's see. Dimension Gamer. Holy Diver was for Famicom only. It has been put on an NES cart in modern times. Ah, cool. Excellent. Oh, nice. And the Wikipedia entry. I'll have to check that out. God, Final Fantasy VII. See, 7 was weird for me because at the time I had a modified PlayStation for playing imports, and I worked at a shop that sold imports. So like I was the cool hipster gamer bleeptard that would buy the Japanese game like launch day because I could then play the game 6 months ahead of everybody else in America. And I didn't know a lick of Japanese. Like I knew just enough to read like save, load, potion, dragon, etc. Process of elimination helps. Like the first time trying to figure out what the menus did in the demo that came at Tobal #1 and accidentally casting, I think it was Fire or Mateo on myself. That was always fun. I was able to play through Final Fantasy VII without knowing the storyline or what I was doing as far as text goes. And I beat it 3 times, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. Like, I basically called it the best game of all time. In fact, there's an article in an old fanzine version of Game Rave where I basically admit that like it's like the only game I'd ever play, blah, blah. Fanboy. And I remember when the US version finally came out, I grabbed a rental copy so I could start playing it again until I finally enjoyed the story. And I think I got like an hour or 2 into it, and I could not stand how bad the translation was. Like, going through the Japanese version and having to make up my own interpretation of what was going on. Like, my Barrett wasn't an Ebonics black guy. Like, he was an educated black guy and a loving father to his daughter. Like, Sid was not the asshole that he was. And to this day, I still haven't played through the American version past those like 2 or 3 hours, just because I cringe every time I read it, and I know I'm going to have to do it again. I think I already did the review for Final Fantasy based on the Japanese one, but I'm gonna have to just go back and replay it again just for the hell of it. And I never did the Omega weapons and Ruby weapons and stuff like that, so I'll have to do it again. Let's see here. Hybrid. I remember selling a copy of D to EB Games. The guy became floored when I went to sell it, saying, "You have D." Repeatedly, that's when I decided to collect video games. Anki, same happened here with a big fan of RE2. It looked cool in the box, but I'd never heard of it. But oh boy, so happily surprised I got when I finally bought it and played it. Yeah. My introduction to Resident Evil was a funny one. Obviously, I'm a Street Fighter fan, so I kind of knew it was coming out at the time because, inserts from the advertisements in the games. Remember advertisements in games? And we were going to our monthly anime club hangout. And when we went there, it was basically always just in a library out in Wooddale. And we would rent out the entire one room, and everyone would bring their tables and their power cords, and we'd hook up different game systems to play and talk to each other while we were watching anime and everything. And someone had just bought Resident Evil, like it came out that month, and everyone had up on the big screen, everyone was watching it, and like really cool, like, wow, this is great. And me being the jackass that I am, he got to the part in that one early room where it says, "You found a map of the haunted mansion. Will you take it?" And before he could guess, I blurted out, "You found the cure for cancer. Will you take it?" And that's how my introduction to Resident Evil happened. I've actually played through all of them up to Code Veronica, and then kind of fell off the bandwagon. I need to replay those again, especially now with them playing through the SCART cable to see all the details in the backgrounds. Let's see. Enki Coffee Bean. About FF7, my first time playing it, I couldn't understand it and stopped playing it, but then I finally made it out of the reactor and got to the train. I got totally hooked on the game. But you know what? Like I said, that's like how with Mass Effect, I know a lot of people that couldn't get past the Citadel. Like, they were like, "There's too much talking. I don't want to talk. What's all this crap?" And every time I say, just get to the ship. Just get to the Normandy and get off and then go, and then it'll all make sense and all be awesome. So I can completely understand where you're coming from there. Ulian, my favorite console is the PS2. I'm actually shocked. I shouldn't say I'm shocked. I'm actually impressed with how many people, regardless of age, say the PS2 is their favorite console. The PS2 was probably like the best. It was probably the best platform in its time frame, because at that time it introduced you everything. If you were just buying a PS2, well, hey, guess what? If you missed out on all the PS1 games, you can play all the PS1 games. Oh, hey, you like movies? That whole new high def thing called the DVD, you can play those. And then the whole process of getting the PlayStation Network on there with the adapters and the hard drives, like the PS2 was like the best introductory, like, Trojan horse gaming system out there. I will always prefer the PS1 as far as like if I had to choose between the two. But you can't deny like just all the stuff the PS2 brought to the table and how it really did merge the entertainment industry and the gaming industry into one piece, especially when you have the DVD quality cinematics in like Final Fantasy X and the really nice hairlocks in Ridge Racer 5. Let's see what's going on here. Holy Diver, I'll check that out later. Speaking of Holy Diver for the NES carts, it's I always joke about how I'm so glad I don't collect import games. In my younger days, when I didn't have a mortgage and car insurance to pay, I used to buy import games all the time. Like one of my favorite purchases of all time was probably the import purchase of Trouble Number One, just because the game was amazing on its own, and then it had the demo with it. But it's weird because I really haven't gotten into imports like since the Dreamcast. Like, there's just so few games I want to play that are actually stuck in Japan that I'm fine. Like I used to be like a JRPG whore, playing everyone I could, and then I think the PS2 and the PS3 kind of ruined that for me, just because it seemed like no matter what they were doing, like the JRPGs were going in the wrong direction. Like I didn't like what they did with 8, I didn't like what they did with 10, and then 11 was the online blah. And that's when I got introduced to Mass Effect. That's when I started getting introduced to the Western RPGs, like Fallout 3, and that changed everything. The morality choices in Mass Effect and Fallout basically ruined me from that point out. Like, I just can't deal with tropes anymore. I mean, I will, obviously, because I got to play all this stuff behind me. But like, if you took me into a GameStop and said, okay, you can choose from Star Ocean or Final Fantasy 15 or Fallout 4, I'm taking Fallout 4 because I love the choices. I love the morality. I love the openness of it. And I just can't deal with, orphaned kids whose dad's was a knight and you get to fight a dragon over and over and over again. Ulian, do you mod your consoles? Not since the Dreamcast. In fact, the Dreamcast, the Saturn, and my PlayStation were the last consoles I ever had modded. I couldn't do them. You don't trust me with a soldering iron. And what sucks is I modded the Saturn, and I bought my Sega Saturn when they officially closed the doors on it to announce the Dreamcast, and I spent $100 to get it modded. And my intention was I was going to buy all the Capcom kart games like X-Men vs. Street Fighter, yada yada yada. And because I could rent the imports that I wanted at the time from the store I was working at, I just did that. And then as time went on, I just didn't need those games anymore because I could just play. As inferior as it is, I could just play X-Men vs. Street Fighter on the PlayStation and not have to worry about spending the $60 to get the game back. And I actually had bought X-Men vs. Street Fighter just kind of as a nostalgia trip, and I think I had it for 2 months tops. And after playing it through a couple times, I'm like, you know what? I don't need this anymore. I ended up selling it off. So despite having a fully modded Saturn, I don't have any imports for it. And my Dreamcast, I got modded the day I bought it. Like I got it for Christmas, and then like the next day at work, I brought it in to have it modded to play imports. And I think I originally wanted it modified to play Guilty Gear because Guilty Gear had not come to America. I don't think it ever did for the Dreamcast. And I just ended up not buying Guilty Gear, and that was the end of it. Like, I have no imports for anything. For the PlayStation, I used to have a decent collection of imports, and by decent, I mean like 10 or 12 games. But all the games I had bought that I couldn't read in Japanese, like all the Squaresoft RPGs and stuff, they were obviously released in America, so I ended up just selling off the imports because I'd rather have the copy I could read. There were a couple of games I never really bought that I kind of wish I did, just for the pure, I hate to say it, but like for the ego trip, like something Raggy Go Time. It's basically like it's like Smash Brothers, but for PlayStation. They're all paper thin, and like Gunner's Heaven and so forth. But if I really wanted to, I could just download an ISO of it and play it. So there's no real need. I'm actually terrified to ever buy an import because I'm afraid one day if I do, it's going to trigger I need to own every import game, and that would not end well for anyone. I mean, this is 1,280 games just in the black area. The Japanese market, if I were to actually buy all the games, including the ones that came out in America, that's 3,000 games by itself. So take that and multiply it. I don't have the room or the time, especially for like, all the text dating sims and pig racing games and stuff like that. Anki, a game I would love to be remastered to PS4 is the Godfather. Good choice. I love that game. I have it for PS2 and PSP, but I would still buy a remastered version of it. What a great game. That would be me with probably like Klonoa. Like I bought that instantly on the Wii when it was remastered. If they wanted to do it again, I would. Obviously, all things Mass Effect. Like I bought a Wii U just to play Mass Effect 3. Like that's how Mass Effect I am. Dimension Gamer. I collect games I want to play mainly rather than full sets. It's funny how many people tell me I am not a collector because of that. That is bullshit. A collector doesn't mean you're going for a full set. In fact, let's talk about that. I'm going to get on a soapbox for a second here. When I was going for my full sets, even the when I was still trying to go for the original Nintendo way back in the day, 18 years ago. Back in the day, collectors were like archivists, all of them. Like if you said, "Oh, hey, I'm a collector. I collect Nintendo games," you'd say, "Okay, cool. I need to know about this and this. Can you help me out with this? What's the best direction to go?" And you would share that information, and you would talk about it. Like you would say, "Okay, if you want to do this, go that. If you want to start here, go there. You need these monies and so forth." Or like when I started doing PlayStation, the reason I started collecting for the PlayStation is twofold, and they're both stupid answers. I started collecting PlayStation 1 games because at the time, no one else was doing it. Everybody was going for their full NES library sets. And when I mean they're full sets, I mean like people like hounding garage sales and flea markets trying to find stadium events and so forth. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to deal with that. I want to actually have a purpose. So I'm going to do PS1 because no one else is crazy enough to do it. And I started doing it. And aside from having the end game of being just having a full set, and mind you, I started collecting when I started working at AB. So 2002, 2003 is right around when I officially started collecting for the PlayStation. And in going for the full set, I lucked out on a lot of things. At that time frame, especially when Game Shark was officially closing its doors, I worked out a payment option that I basically bought Game Shark's entire library of PS1 games that we had bought for all the testing of the Game Shark codes and stuff like that. And in doing that, I basically went to EB Games that I was working at because they had already let most of us go from Game Shark. I basically explained the situation to my EB Games guys and bought a frightening dollar amount of gift cards and basically had to my manager had to call our district manager and say, "Hey, look, here's what's going on. It's all legit. It's all on the it's all on the fly thing out." Took the gift cards to Game Shark, my coworkers, and those gift cards were based off the trading values of the PlayStation games. So basically, instead of them going to GameStop and me having to buy, or I should say EB Games, me having to buy from EB Games, I basically cut out the middleman and just bought the games directly. I'd be willing to bet that's where like half of the 1,284 games came from easily. I still remember we used every mailbox box, shipping container, bucket, like whatever we could do to get the games in my car and home. And then in collecting the PlayStation games and doing research, that's how I met my friend Steve, who was in here on the original. I pointed him out on the original stream. He was the person that made me realize I could actually have a purpose with collecting. And blah, blah, blah. The original first concept page for Game Rave was actually King of Fighters 95. I had done screenshots. I had done all the info. And from there, that's where Game Rave as a collector's website was born. And during that time, and I know I just rambled for 20 minutes straight. During that time, between Steve and me and Christine and a whole bunch of other people on digitalpress.com, we were all collectors and we were all sharing info and sharing notes and confirming myths and stuff like that. And somewhere between that era and present day, the term collector went from meaning archivist knowledgeable, like he or she is the person you trust, to, hey, look at me on YouTube. Look at a room full of plastic I've got. I'm the best. Send me your games, and that terrifies me. Like, I've seen episodes of collectors where they're like showing off their games, and when they're asked about the games, they don't know what the game's about. I know what you spent to get that game. How do you not know what it's about? And that just terrifies me. Like, social media, be it YouTube, etc., what should have happened is it became an amazing hive of just knowledge and encouragement and comparing notes and helping each other out. And instead, it's just become one big, pardon the language, dick swinging. It terrifies me. Like, I have seen some of the most saddest things of people that collectors. Like I have nothing against people that have crazy collections. Full disclosure. At my height, I'm willing to bet I probably had about 6,000 games at my height. And years ago, I was walking into a mall and I just stopped mid-pace and realized I didn't need all those video games. Like, I was never going to get to them. I didn't need 5 copies of insert game here across 6 systems. Mass Effect doesn't count. I need all of them. And I kind of had a mental breakdown right there in the parking lot. And after I went in and played Aladdin's Castle and checked GameStop and EB, I went home, and that day just started looking at my entire collection, deciding who was not going to, like, it was basically the Avengers Infinity War of my game collection. I snapped a finger and half of it was sold off. I sold off 3DO. I sold off Jaguar. I sold off Super Nintendo and Genesis. I was almost at full sets. I mean, most of it was cartridge only, but I sold off Master System. I sold off my N64. I sold off so much, and I had a complete Sega 32X collection at the time, Spider-Man and all, and I sold it all. I mean, I got the right amount of money for it, obviously, on eBay and everything. I'm willing to bet I probably sold off like at least 10 to 15 systems and probably about 2,000 games. And I have had no regrets, because, like saying you're going to open up a museum with your games, they're still just sitting there doing nothing. So no, you could literally be 3 games and that's your entire library. Congrats, you're a collector. You collect the things you collect. That's awesome. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you're not this. If they do, that is just them trying to find an excuse to make themselves feel better by picking on you. Like, anyone who says you're not a gamer because you only play solitaire, piss off. You're a gamer. I don't care what the console is. I don't care what the game is. If you're playing a game, you're a gamer. And I mean that in the most positive sense possible. Let's jump back on here for a second here. Hybrid. I bought a modded PS1 from a GameStop. I'm not shocked by that at all. I mean, we didn't open the systems at the time to test them. I said I bought what did I buy? I bought I think was it a Super Nintendo, I think? I bought from an EB Games before I started working there, and I went to go open it up, and it had the butter knifed tabs in the cartridge slot so people could play the Japanese games. I thought that was pretty funny. Guilty Gear rocks. Yes, it does. I never really played anything past the PS2. I think I played the Wii version. But yeah, I never really, wait, was that the Wii, or was that the, oh my God. Wait, was that PS2? There was a game for Guilty Gear that was like a strategy-based game. I think it was PlayStation 2. I had bought that for like $3 and I wanted to try it out, and I forgot to try it out, and I ended up just selling it in a lot because I knew I was never going to get to it. Guilty Gear is probably one of the best fighting game series ever, like especially on the early days, because they were just they did things with the hardware on the PS1 and the PS2 that just defied logic. Don't forget to hit that like button, people. Please do. Let's see. Agree with you, gamer collectors. Yeah. Dimension Gamer, the only requirement for me is you enjoy the game. So if you enjoy the game you're playing, you're a gamer. Same going for collecting. If you enjoy getting the games you buy, you're a collector. Indeed. Perfect. Like I really don't like what like things become. And so when I first started Game Rave TV, when it came to YouTube, first of all, let me back this up with a little quick side story. I am the worst person to ask about future technologies because I don't understand them until it's too late, and then I kind of like run back and do things. Case in point, in my younger days, I didn't understand why anyone would be so happy about an MP3. Why would I need the song on my computer? I've got it on the CD right there. I don't understand the importance. 20 years later, here I am on Spotify streaming my music. When YouTube first hit the scene, I had actually had the screen capping abilities to make screenshots for the website and so forth, but I didn't understand why YouTube would be so useful. Like I couldn't comprehend watching someone else play a game. I couldn't understand like watching someone else talk about a game rather than talking to someone about the game. So I kind of like fell off that bandwagon on the beginning, and I was like, okay, I don't get it, whatever, blah, blah. And then like 5 years later, when I was actually doing Game Rave full time, I was like, oh, wow, YouTube is great for showing gameplay footage video, and you know, people are talking about the game and streaming and talking to each other. Oh, I get it now. Well, shit. So now I'm trying to, just like getting into YouTube in of itself, had I known us doing this and talking and so forth would have been like a wanted thing, I would have done it a long time ago. Just because I'm an idiot when it comes to like understanding what's new and hip and so forth. Let's see. Ulian, do you like indie games? Yeah, I have nothing against them. Like, I can understand not appreciating or liking a genre. Like, for example, I'm not big on sports games, but I can still play them and enjoy them, but I wouldn't like go to seek them out. I don't understand how people could say they don't like indie games, because technically, in a roundabout way, all the AAA games started off as indie developers. I mean, for God's sakes, Activision themselves are like the end-all, be-all original indie developer. And I think people that say they don't like indie games, I think they say that because they're, and this is just me being facetious, I think they're afraid to not be one of the cool kids. Like, I love Mass Effect, I love Tomb Raider, but I can also 100% appreciate Child of Light, or watching my friends play Sundered because I'd get my ass beat in that game. In fact, two of my favorite games I literally just played that Becky showed me was Inside and Limbo. If you would, it's the who is making the game is not important. It's the game that's important. And if it doesn't matter if it's two dudes in their garage or the 300-man staff, half of which who got fired 6 months later, is making the game. If it's a good freaking game, I'm going to play it. And I really believe indie games are not only awesome, and regardless of what they do, but they're probably the most important part of our industry now. And the reason that is because in the modern day AAA gaming verse, there's a problem. There is no middle ground. If you go back to the PlayStation, the Super Nintendo, the like Genesis days, everyone was in the same court, everyone was in the same game. And you could have games that were phenomenal, like Final Fantasy VI or UN Squadron, and you could have games that were absolute crap, like insert crappies from Nintendo game I can't think of right now. But in between those two uprights, if you will, in between there were all the average games, the final fights, the racing games, the beat 'em ups. You had three tiers of games that you could appreciate regardless of what they were. And the indie game industry is that middle space between the two uprights, especially in a world now where everyone's an angry gamer and everyone is, the cool kid. Because while you're destroying said game here, but enjoying said game here, there's this beautiful gray area of indie games that can take care of whatever needs you have. So yeah, like Guacamelee is fucking amazing. And I know if it weren't for consoles allowing the publishing of indie games like that, I would have never played it. Child of Light I started playing on, I think, the PC once I got this new rig set up. But yeah, like I have nothing against indie games. I have nothing against sports games. They're just as important as everybody else. And in fact, you'll find gaming's renaissance in indie development. Like when they've ruined Mass Effect Andromeda by giving it to a new dev team on new hardware that doesn't understand what they're doing in a time constraint. When they've ruined Fallout because they want to make it a pay-to-play game. When they've ruined Star Wars because they want to make it a loot box thing. While all that chaos is going on in the AAA, you can be sitting over here playing Limbo and Inside and Guacamelee and Child of Light, and everything's cool. Let's see what I got here. Inded in the house. What's up, boy? Crazy to hear your offload story. I'm gonna have to rewind back to this video and see how you got up to mentioning that. Inded. Crazy to hear it just rushed over you to make that decision and how you felt no different. I was blindly buying every limited run release that came out in below $100 in weeks on games that absolutely no one ever even wants from that area of limited run, including digital games. I'm not about 4K, blah, blah. If you want to focus on that, I can actually go further into that moment. So, and I'll never forget, like I remember like it was freaking yesterday. So I was in the parking lot walking from my car, and I literally froze in my steps. Like, thank God there wasn't a car coming down the way, if you want. A couple of days prior to that moment, I had just tracked down Woody Woodpecker's cartoon discs for the 3DO. I spent $60, $40, and $70 before shipping on the three of them from a seller in, it wasn't Brazil, it was a faraway country. And I'd gotten those games in the mail like the day before. I was like, cool, awesome, just knocked out like some rare copies of the games, put them on the shelf when I'm about my business. And when I got to that moment in the parking lot, I was actually thinking about those three games. And what brought me to my complete stop was a little voice in my head that just said, you spent over $110 on crappy looking cartoons because FMV hadn't been mastered yet because it was on the 3DO, that you're never going to watch. And if you do watch, you're never going to watch them after the fact. So why did you spend that money on it? And that's when like all that wave of just, what am I doing with my life? Like, I'm not kidding when I said I broke down. Like, I basically ducked back into my car and had a quick cry, if you will, and then got back up, and like the whole world changed. Like it'd be like going from like Sonic's past, Sonic C's like past level to their future level, but it's all rosy now. And I remember after having that breaking moment, I walked into the mall to do my usual shopping, and like I had this moment again after the purge when I thought I was still going to be collecting for like PS2 and so forth, where if you take a step back from buying everything and you actually look at what you want to buy legitimately and the rest is like, yeah, whatever, everything looks different. Like, because I had decided to not collect full sets for anything past what my systems are, so the PlayStation 1, Saturn, and so forth. It no longer became walls of games I'm going to buy and like visual checklists. It became, well, what do I actually want to play on here? And even my friend who still works at GameStop, when I stop by to say hi and peruse, like she'll literally say, "Hey, what's going on?" And before I can say hi back, she goes, "Why are you even here? You're not going to buy anything. There's no new Mass Effect." And she's right. Like it, like when you realize, like this is to look at this point. If I didn't do Game Rave, like if I didn't want to tell you guys about all the variants and all the typos, what's up, hybrid, and like tell you, like be an actual legit unbiased reviewer. So I'm not some YouTuber who's like, oh, this game sucks, go. But I'm actually telling you why it sucks or why it's actually not that bad. If I didn't have Game Rave to support this would all be sold off. It would be literally my 35 copies of Mass Effect in the living room, a couple of Tomb Raiders, and maybe Intelligent Cube and Jumping Flash, and the Street Fighter collections, and that would be it. And somewhere in a parallel universe, that Jason exists where I never hit that like collector, I will be the people's hero stage. I just went back to like, and I'm rambling and I apologize. Also, hi Mario. I just saw you you pop in. I literally almost got out of gaming 100%. Like, yeah, we're gonna share this story now. So, okay, so Jason is at the time when the 3DO, the Jaguar, the Laser Active, and I don't remember what the other system was. But Jaguar and the 3DO were the main ones. There was no game on the 3DO or the Jaguar that I wanted. Like, I mean, yeah, the 3DO had Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo and it had Samurai Showdown, but a friend had it and I played it, and I was not going to play with that wah-wah music on Street Fighter or the shoppiness of Samurai Showdown. And I was working at the Oakland Pavilion, which is basically like a workout, like, basketball court type stuff. And they had a kind of like a garage sale flea market thing. And I signed up. Now I was at a very impressionable moment at my life at that point. I think I was in college, early college. God, where was I? I think it was early college. And I was like, you know what? I want money. I want to hang out with people. I want to have a car. I want to have insurance for my car, blah, blah. And I sat back and looked at my game collection. And at the time, it would have been Genesis, the TurboGrafx I had bought from the Toys R Us for $30 in Florida when I was with my friend, and my Genesis stuff. I'm like, you know what? I really don't need any of this. Like, I'm good. I ended up selling, I believe, the Super Nintendo and a whole ton of games to a coworker who it was for her kids and they loved it. I ended up selling most of the Genesis stuff and the Sega C stuff at the flea market. I ended up selling literally almost everything off that table. And all that was left was the TurboGrafx I bought for $30 from the Toys R Us in Florida, Aero Blasters, Dead Moon, and I can never remember the third game. They were all bought from the Toys R Us because they were like $5 each, and the system was $30, blah, blah. And this is all true. What I'm about to tell you is all true, no exaggeration, no nothing. The flea market was taking words, was happening during one of the like patriotic holidays. It was the 4th of July, whatever. And with so little stuff left on my table, a giant bald eagle mascot character was walking past, and he stopped, and I said hi, and he looked down and he asked about the TurboGrafx. And I was like, yeah, it's $30, blah, blah, blah. I figured I'd just make my money back on it and, call it a wash. He goes, oh, I'll think about it. And the bird walked away. Now, that moment triggered in me the most interesting panic attack / self-reflective / existential crisis I've ever experienced, because while I had played Aero Blasters for a little bit, I hadn't really played their games. I started thinking, wait a minute, it's $30. with games. How is that a bad deal? This is a TurboGrafx. Like this is worth the money. And I freaked out so bad because I couldn't understand why he wouldn't have jumped on it, that I ended up hiding the TurboGrafx. I ended up putting it back in my car, and if the bird had come back, I would just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's sold." Blah blah blah. I sold everything on that table. All my Super Nintendo, all my Genesis. It was all gone. Literally, all I had left was the TurboGrafx and a lot of money. And that night, I went home and I kind of sat there with the system, and I was like, "All right, we're gonna figure shit out." So I hooked up the system again, and I played through Aero Blasters 100%. Like, it took a lot of continues, but I did it. And I was like, this is fantastic. And that was probably the moment, looking back, that was the moment when it was no longer casual gamer Jason. It was Jason who wanted to know what makes this game tick and why. And from that moment, I started playing and tracking down all the TurboGrafx games. As I've said before, like the TG16 was my first complete library, and at one moment, all I had was the Turbo CD. Or actually, the Turbo CD, there was the TurboGrafx that I actually ended up upgrading through TurboZone Direct to get the Turbo Duo, which is still the one I have all these years later. And yeah, like that was history. I ended up a couple of years later, rebuying the Super Nintendo from the EB Games Chicago's Mall, and I ended up rebuying the Genesis and a Sega CD1 combo, I think from a flea market. And from there, new Jason, who Game Rave Jason was basically born, and from there, here's where we're at. But yeah, the moral of that story, the reason I told it, is because I wanted to get out of gaming for good, and life flipped me the bird. That was pretty crazy. Let's catch up here. I was against the CDs. I loved my vinyl, still do. Yeah, well, that's the old man syndrome. It's kind of like the that's like the whole buying all the DVDs and then Blu-ray's out. Blu-ray's gonna be amazing. All right, well, no, I'm not gonna buy a 4K. Like, the only reason I would buy an Xbox One is just to have the 4K movie option, which Becky would get more use out of than I would. But right now, I'd rather have the $200 for other stuff. Oh yes. Yeah. Like I said, if you guys weren't on the original podcast from the other day, or podcast, Jesus Christ, the stream the other day, Hybrid has a website called I Am Air over on GameHacking.com. It's phenomenal. He tracks all the crazy misprints. I've got a couple on there. It doesn't matter if it's missing an ink layer. The instruction manual has 15 folds to it. Like, he's got some great stuff on there. Hybrid, if you can, just post your link and let people check it out. It's a phenomenal site. I just started linking to it on GameRave.com, but I will be going back to all the previous pages I did, and we'll be linking to it for where you can. Ori and the Blind Forest, I never gave a chance. I think it's on the 360, but I kind of wanted to, but I heard it's hard, though. Shovel Knight is hard. I actually have that, I think, on my PlayStation. It's either on my PlayStation. I think it's PlayStation. And I think I got halfway through it, and I was like, I'm good. It's either this or I'm going to need a lot of more alcohol. Thrift Bites, welcome to the channel. First time I've seen your name. What is going on? My channel is Ace PS1 all the way. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Thrift Bites, I like that. Yeah. Icky Coffee Bean. Yes. Confess for us, Jason. Confess. We won't tell anyone. Oh man. Oh my God, guys. Speaking of confessing, I had a bizarre situation happen the other day. I got a message on Facebook from someone believing they were the person that sold me the NBA 2 ball. If you guys haven't heard the story, the short version is that a long time ago, someone offered me a NBA 2-ball sealed, and at the time, I was like one of the only people looking for it. I offered them $300 for it, and they were like, "Oh, we'll think about it." And what ended up happening is they ended up going to eBay, listing it on eBay for, I think it was $30,000. Just like there's like $10,000 or $30,000. But then they had gone to Game Rave and literally just copy and pasted my entire information about the game and pasted it into the eBay auction, complete with like out correcting all the HTML brackets and so forth. And I wasn't angry, I was more annoyed about the backstabbing, that I decided to have a little fun and put an actual bid on it. Like, it was a buy it now for $30,000 and then the actual auction. So I put a bid on it for the original $300 just to have the binding contract on eBay. And after like 2 days, the person said, "Hey, my wife talked to me about it, blah, blah, blah. We'll just end up selling it to you for $300. I was like, "Cool, it's great, whatever, blah, blah." And I've shared that story and complained about that story before, and usually in angry terms. And now that you know that, they had emailed me saying, "Hey, I got nostalgia. I think I'm the person that sold you that game. I just wanted to apologize as being the asshole seller and yada yada, and how they kind of missed it, to having the disc and so forth, and how they couldn't buy it back from me, for the 30,000 or whatever. But if I ever want to sell it, yada yada." And I actually replied back to them sincerely and let them know that like, it was all water under the bridge, but yeah, I didn't think they were the person because I don't remember the name, and I'm terrible with names. And in reality, that whole experience was actually the best thing that could have happened, because I realized part of the problem and what caused that situation was my own fanboyness. A similar situation happened with Elemental Gearbolt, where I still need the gold memory card variant one, but I would literally just buy the memory card if I could. And I went on eBay, so I spotted one, and when I clicked on the auction, the first paragraph was like, "Okay, here's what it is, here's the condition," and then like there was like these 5 or 6 paragraphs where it was just my information, and for like a better term, I wouldn't say bragging, but like joy-gasming over it, that he had copied from GameRave.com and said, "Hey, look at this guy. Look at how he's telling you how rare this is. Look at how amazing he's telling you this." And I had never felt so betrayed by myself, that between the NBA 2-ball incident and that Assassin's Case incident, that made me a better person, because I began reining in all the fanboyness and just promoting facts. And like the old page would have been like, "Oh man, like this is like the sexiest thing on earth. Like, you got to have this literally aluminum briefcase." Whoopie new. To now we're saying, "Hey, here's the stats. We got in contact with Victor Ireland and confirmed everything, blah blah." And same with NBA 2-ball. I removed all the hype and all the bullshit and just presented the information, and that changed me to be a better reviewer and a better archivist and a better hunter. And it's really eye-opening. And I shared this with the possible seller. I said, "Look, no, it was the best thing that could have happened, because it made me a better person. It like improved the channel, etc." And going forward from that, like, I watch other YouTube channels now, and it's just like, what are you doing? There's one that I always laugh at, because, pardon me for a sec, guys. There's one that I watch, and it cracks me up, because literally every single thing he holds up is a rare item. Like, and I don't mean like they are rare. I mean, like, he does it to make himself either feel better or look better to his audience. But he'll be like, "Oh yeah, here's Madden 97. Oh my God, like, it's become rare to like find these days." I'm like, there's 6 pages on eBay full of them. What are you talking about? And you need to start cutting through all that crap to actually find the good content, like the actual worthy content. And yeah, so that was 20 minutes of a great story that became 5 stories in one. Let's check on in chat here. This will be your Sunday confessions. It usually is. It usually is. I kind of like doing these streams now because it makes me think about stuff I haven't thought about in years, and hopefully I won't run out of material for you guys. I'm looking over and look at the TurboGrafx stuff. One of the craziest things that I ever did buying a video game was for the TurboGrafx, and it was tracking down Castlevania Rondo of Blood. Now, obviously, that game has been reprinted to death, be it DLC versions or added on the PSP games, etc. But to give an idea of of what I went through for that game, we were at, I can't remember if it was on a forum or if it was on the Mars Game Swap. But wherever I was, I ran into a person, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for it, blah blah." And they go, "Hey, I know a guy. I'll get in contact with you." And to this day, actually, you know what? Hold that thought, guys. If I have it handy, I can actually show you. Yeah. Okay, so again, 2 stories in one. So here's my copy of Rondo of Blood, complete and everything, spine card. The person I bought it from was John Olson. And John Olson was this guy I literally just met that day. And really, really nice guy, really cool guy. I was actually with 2 of my friends, and he's like, "Hey, if you want to buy the game, like if you have the cash right now, we can just go back to my house. I will sell it to you." Thing. And at the time, I think I bought it for like the $100 or whatever it was. It was fairly cheap at the time. And we went to his house, and we literally just hung out. This was a complete stranger. Like this is years before Uber and all that crazy stuff and Airbnbs. This is just a complete stranger I met at a swap meet. He's like, "Yeah, just come back to my house. We're cool." So we went back there, and we just hung out in his room and just talked and had a good time. And he goes, "Hey, here's the Castlevania. Here's the condition. It was perfect." And he goes, "Hey, are you gonna continue sharking it?" Now, as someone who would eventually work for Game Shark, I was like, "There is no Game Shark for TurboGrafx. What are you talking about?" And I don't know. Like, this is still unknown to me. I don't know if this was ever just like his group of friends thing or if I missed it. And I think sharking was the term. But sharking the game in the old days when there was no artwork on the back, like on the inserts, they would just be like, white. And sharking the game basically meant you were, besides it being a blank insert, the actual tray were gray. Like the PlayStation 1 games were the first ones to do the clear casing in the back, because even the Saturn jewel cases and the lung boxes were the gray background, so you couldn't see the insert. Sharking the game meant that you were basically putting your name on it to identify it as yours, but then it gave a list of all the previous owners. And to show you I'm not making this up, I'm going to cover up this guy's personal information here. So the game being sharked, let's see if I can get this to appear. So it's from the Olsen collection, so it's John Olsen. And then he did the sharking June 96, and then he showed where the game had come from in all of its steps. So it came from the original website sale, then went to this reseller, and then to him. Then I was supposed to be person number 4, but I could never bring myself to write on the insert. This was literally the only time I'd ever heard of doing this. And now every time I buy, I shouldn't say every time, it's rarely I buy games now because I have pretty much everything aside from variants. Every time I see something like a game case that has the opaque case, I'll pry the lid and see if the game's been sharked. I'd be willing to bet if you were in the Chicago area around 1996 and you start opening up some of your oddball games, I'd be willing to bet you'd find people's names in there. But yeah, I don't even remember the point of the story, but there we go. I love Thrift Bites. I love hearing the where and whys behind game hunting. It's my jam. Ulian, can digital-only video games be preserved for future generations? Yes, but technically not legitimately. Apparently people preserved the Wii Shop channel somehow. I mean, there's going to be broken image links and so forth, but they actually like pulled everything off it, like the menus and so forth. I know with, I think it was the Wii, someone figured out how to log in as a developer. And by logging in as a developer, you could have access to other stuff. And through that, they started downloading a whole bunch of things. Otherwise, it would basically, future preservation as far as digital downloads goes, is if limited run games doesn't print or someone else doesn't print it, you would literally have to figure out how to extract it off the hard drive of the system, make it not attached to your username, and then make it available to download, but then figure out how it would work on the next person's system with the PSN IDs and stuff like that. That is not an undertaking I want to be a part of, if only because of all the headaches, and I can't fathom what all the hackers and hackers out there will need to do to get it to work. And I appreciate the work they do for stuff like that, especially when you go back. If you guys don't follow Frank, I think it's Cifaldi from Lost Levels, he's now doing his own thing. He helped with like the SNK 40 Years collection. He had a fantastic presentation from a couple of years ago that showed, was it Super Mario Brothers? It was basically one of the digital download versions of Super Mario Brothers that you bought from Nintendo. There was actually a header on the ROM of, like, I think it was the site that Nintendo technically downloaded it from. So Nintendo literally went to the internet, downloaded their own game, and then just tossed it on their own eShop and sold it back to you and so forth. So you'll probably see a lot of interesting stories like that going forward. But like I said, I can't even fathom the logistics of how people are going to preserve the games. My worry is the DLC. Like, I re-downloaded all the Mass Effect stuff to all of my hard drives on every console and PC I have. I've got all the DLC for the PC version backed up to 2 different externals just to have them. I love Pinnacle Station. I know no one else did. But yeah, that's a whole like drinking discussion that would take forever to like map out. Dimension Gamer, I think there is a lack of distinct knowledge-based channels when you compare to entertainment review channels on YouTube. I highly agree. I never really thought about that. I'm more of a knowledge-based entertainment. It's a good way to look at it, and there is a severe lack. Like, you say entertainment-based channel. Let's have a little fun for a second. And now every entertainment channel's thumbnail. OMG. Oh, cool. Yeah, like I bet you guys, Hybrid's website, I Am Air, he just linked it into the channel and I approved it. Check it out. There's some great stuff on there. I think one of my favorite ones on his is the Resident Evil misprint that is it was a black and red disc and it's missing all the black ink, so it literally looks like it's just a blood like blood splatter disc. It's pretty cool. Thrift Bites, great. Totally thinking about opening all my games now. Seriously, like, obviously I'm opening my games by default to scan them in, so considering I haven't touched Saturn yet. Saturn is no, I take that back. Sega Saturn and Sega CD, and actually all the TurboGrafx CD stuff, I haven't opened yet, and all of those have the opaque tray cases. So God knows what's waiting for me in those inserts. Hybrid, Danger Boy, can't plug my site. Fuck yeah, bleep yeah. Like, dude, as long as it's family friendly and informative, and won't get my channel flagged or yellow carded, I am all about hyping people up. I've name dropped Inded's channel. I have Inded your I am hacking. I'm all for it, dude. You gotta spread the love. Anki Company. Inded's work time at the game store. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday ravers and keep up, Jason. Thanks for everything you do. Inded, have a great day. Be an awesome person. Inded, I've actually shared stories from our retail days. I'm sure he could probably have a couple on his own YouTube channel to talk about. But yeah, you have a great day, dude. Dimension Gamer, yeah, the title below the thumbnail would be ultra rare game found. OMG, OMG, look, that or clickbait. Like, there was one video. Who was it? It was something like you'll never believe this was found, blah blah. And you click on it, it's just him talking about like Super Mario Duck Hunt. I was like, dude, delete, whatever, unsubscribed. Thrift Bites, risky business with PAL PS1 cases and Dreamcast. Oh my god, dude. So like, I've made the jokes that I don't collect Japanese import games from the Japan side because of all the dating simulators that are text-based and pachinko games and so forth. I would not collect PAL just for the cases. Oh my god, if you blink, they just disintegrate into like, Thanos' snap. They're terrible. Oh man. Speaking of, like, that'd be actually a great story. That'd be a great thing to do. One of the other YouTubers does it. In fact, I actually told him he should do it. Is comparing artwork. Like, as a graphic designer, I have an extra little like chip in the game when it comes to case artwork and so forth. PAL artwork, 50% of the time, PAL artwork is the absolute like worst artwork there is. Like, I don't understand how any of that got approved. Just having the PlayStation logo at the bottom, having weird choices in how it's cropped because of the hologram and so forth. It's just like, oh, what are you guys doing? And then like I complain about that, and then like in America we have a bizarre dude with toothpicks in his eyes for our busted move case. Oh my god. Holy crap, we've been doing this for an hour and a half, and this is the second video. This is becoming like a standard 2-hour thing. Dimension Gamer, would you consider the PAL versions of PS1 games worth preserving even though they are considered inferior versions? Yes. Slap this on a shirt, slap this on a thumbnail, write it in the sky, to quote Patton Oswalt and Gossamilitias. Every single thing is worth preserving. I don't care if it's Army Men, I don't care if it's 50. Everything is worth preserving, especially looking back, because it's a historical significance. In fact, where did I read that? I think it was somewhere in one of the Facebook threads, forums with PlayStation, is someone was laughing at the irony of how the American PlayStation had the faster frame rates, but less of the games he wanted to play, but the PAL had more of the games he wanted to play, but the crappier frame rate. Like seriously, like preserve everything. Like I don't care what it is. In fact, one of the things I kind of regret not doing from the starting point is scanning in the backs of manuals for the PS1 games, because one, all the different advertisements, like the 5 boxes of magazine ads I'll never get to for scanning in. But everything literally is worth preserving. It doesn't matter what it is. If the PlayStation 1 were not the behemoth it was, I probably would have gone like and done like all the regions, and as psycho as it is, I would have tried to done like all the accessories, which would have never freaking happened. Like, there's probably more third-party knockoff controllers for PlayStation 1 than there are human beings on Earth. And I sold quite a lot of them at the family store. Everybody in the UK can only see 50 hertz anyway. That's pretty funny. Yes, PS. Basically, PAL is European at the 50 hertz, and then Japan and the US are what's called NTSC. I think there's a third one for some of the way out there countries. Is it there's PAL? Is it CCOM? I think it's like SECAM. That's like a third one as well that PAL is part of. What? But yeah, basically it's basically just the way you stream the information to the TV. I think PAL was created because of the mountain ranges. I think there's legit reasons of why they're what they are in their various countries. As far as Japanese NTSC and American NTSC, aside from the games themselves being region locked, I don't think the signal is. If it is, it'd be something very small and technical. Because I mean, I've played import games on American systems fine with no, visual bizarreness or what have you. There actually is two different models of the PlayStation though, where I think it goes with the dithering, where earlier models didn't create gradients as smoothly as some of the later models do. I don't think there's that big of a difference between Japanese and American NTSC. No, CCAM. Thank you. It was CCAM. As the lag kicks in, everyone's like, "It's CCAM, you bastards!" Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. There are days when I miss just being casual gamer Jason. Like when I would just buy random games just to check out, be it import, local, or otherwise. And nowadays, collector variant hunter Jason's like, "Oh, I'll hold off on buying that game because I need that money to buy the 15th variant of Tomb Raider because there's a letter slightly off on the back somewhere." Oh man, what time is it? 2:14. All right, guys. I think we'll stay on for another 15 minutes, make it a nice even 2:30. That way, I can go back and edit the original front half of the stream and make sure both these are live on YouTube for people to check out. Dimension Gamer, I miss not caring that I didn't see the end credits to game. Now I feel awful for not finishing a game I bought. I miss not caring that I didn't. Yeah. You know what's weird though? Like to parlay into that. How would I explain this? How would I explain that? It's a similar effect that I miss not playing a game. Like with how many times I've gone through Tomb Raider and Mass Effect and Horizon, like there used to be a time when like I would look at a game on the shelf in the store and be like, "Oh man, I kind of regret not playing that. I should probably check it out for the $10." And now it's like, like Darksiders 1 and 2 were both two games I wanted to play, and it literally took the games being their Game of the Year editions with all the DLC on the disc being like $10 each for me to finally go, all right, I'll give you guys a shot. And it still took me, I think, 6 months to finally crack open the discs and play them. But see, the good thing is, though, is the fact that you feel awful about not finishing the game means that developers are doing their job. They want you to see the end of their game. That's what's important. Like, I can tell you right now, like, you would have to twist my arm and drug me to make me play any of the modern day first-person shooter military games. But I am so glad I played through Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3, because those single-player games, like, they're like the only FPSs as far as like bro FPSs that I have ever truly enjoyed and was so glad I played because the storylines in the single player were so phenomenal. 3, not so much because it was just recycling stuff, but like the wow factor of no Russian, is still, and like the nuclear explosion from the first one are still just ingrained into my brain. That's actually hang on a sec. I'm gonna write that down real quick. Dimension, you are inspiring. I think next stream we're gonna talk about games I regret not finishing. Regret not finishing games. Thrift bites. I get way more excited for trash. I picked up a bunch of Super NES with loads of great first-party titles and ended up playing Dragon Bruce Lee story all night out of the bunch. But see, that's what makes buying the middle stuff amazing. Like, as I talked about earlier in the stream, with Starfighter Sandvine, if I didn't have a full set and have Game Rave to make me go through that full set, I probably would have never played it, and it's fantastic. You can enjoy a bad game. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, you can pull Night Trap, Sewer Shark, and for PlayStation 1's sakes, Batman Forever out of my cold, dead hands. Like, you can enjoy bad games for what they are. Never be ashamed of that. Black on the original Xbox is really good. Yes, it was. I loved Black. I went to go replay Black before selling off my original Xbox, and I couldn't do it because you couldn't skip that like first literal hour of storyline, and it was like that. Black was so phenomenal for its day. Like, oh my god, I forgot all about that. Anki Coffee Bean. Next Sunday confession. Games that made us cry. That is brilliant. It'll be 2.5 hours of me telling you about Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. Specifically 3. Games that made you cry. And it's by Anki. I give you credit. Excellent, Anki. That is phenomenal. Oh, man. But yeah, dude, like, sort of like a preview of next week, like Mass Effect 3. My first playthrough, my first legit, I am carrying my character over from 2 story playthrough. I cried no less than 4 times. 4. And then I immediately played it again, cried again all 4 times. And I think it wasn't until the 4th or 5th playthrough where like I was down to just crying at 2 scenes. And then by the time I hit double digits on the replay, I was finally like not crying, just thinking passionately and deeply about the entire situation. Hybrid, excellent. The INS ROM header from the story about the Super Mario ROM that Nintendo used. Anki, I must admit I had shed tears in some gaming sessions, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you cry, like if you legit either joy cry or sad cry during a game, that just means that's how good the writing was and how impactful it was. Like, one of my favorite things about Mass Effect 1 is the absolute extreme hatred people have for either Caden or Ashley. And the reason you have that divisive hatred is because the characters were just that well written. Like, you have to decide, especially if you're femshep, if you're going to keep like racist, I forgot the term, xenophobic, she's an alien, xenophobic Ashley, or go with creepy stalker, leave me alone, you're creeping me out, Caden. And it just showed how well that writing was. Especially if you look past all that and romance them, when they shat on you in Mass Effect 2 and were like, you're working for Cerberus? Like, the writing was so well done. I remember crying during Final Fantasy VII's obvious Eris scene. In fact, I was playing that with a friend, and it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and they had just left to go home. And I was like, cool, I'm just going to save my progress. I'll let whatever the cinema is, we'll play, we'll be fine. And the cinema was Sephiroth killing Eris. And I think after that is when you stick the next disc in. And I was like, F Easter. Like, I'm done. Like, we're going to save this right here. And we're going to keep going because I'm going to kill it. I'm a bitch. Not, realizing he's going to be the end boss 2 discs later, bro. Like, go to bed. God, what other game? I'm trying to think of like other games that made me cry. Like, I've never cried out of frustration. But I've definitely like just joy cried or sob cried because the story was so well. Like Mass Effect for sure. Horizon was a tearjerker, pretty good. I remember shedding a tear there. Um, Last of Us wasn't a tearjerker, but that opening sequence like made me just put down the controller and think about life. Like that was brutal. God, that's gonna be Anki. That's a great. I'm gonna save that for next week. That's gonna be a fantastic conversation starter. All right, guys. I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. I can hear Mrs. Game Rave doing some stuff in the kitchen, so I'm going to bet she's hungry. What's that? What kind of sadness? One game I cried like a kid, dude. Mass Effect 3, man. Eve, someone else would have gotten it wrong. There is no shame in crying, no matter what you do. All right, but that said, before you guys have another amazing comment, I will cut it off here. I'm going to make sure that both halves of the stream are up on YouTube so you guys can rewatch it or link it, whatever. You guys have an amazing Sunday. Stay out of the damn snow, and I will see you guys all next week. Thank you, guys. Take care. I cried when Fable 3 didn't give me a chance to put the money in the save. We will end it there. That's amazing. Take care, you guys.